Now, my gut tells me if both of those guys are there at 6, Andrew Berry's going to auction that pick off. But, I would have no problem if the Browns picked either one of them. Because, again, from my standpoint, I think those are the two best players in the draft. And if you tell me you can walk away with one of the two best players in the draft with the number 6 overall pick. Because, again,
I mentioned the guys. There seems to be a building consensus from the mock drafters that maybe the Browns are going to trade out of 6. But I know they've all got some inside info to one degree or another. I'm not buying. I'm far from convinced the Browns are going to trade down from 6 to 12 because I'm not sure what the Cowboys are giving up to go from 12 to 6.
Cleveland Browns almost guaranteed to trade the number 6 NFL draft pick. And if that actually happens, it tells you everything about how this franchise views itself right now. Because teams don't move off a top 6 pick unless they either see chaos coming or opportunity. And the Browns, they might be staring at both. This isn't just draft strategy anymore. This is identity. This is direction. And the scary part is, the closer we get to draft night, the more it feels like Cleveland isn't locked in on one guy. They're waiting for someone else to make the decision for them. Here's the part nobody is talking about. The Browns might not love anyone at number 6. That's the uncomfortable truth coming out of insiders and analysts around the league. When Darrell Reuter says his gut tells him Andrew Berry would auction that pick off if the right players are still there, that's not random wording. That's calculated. That means Cleveland is looking at this board and thinking, we like players, but we don't love one enough to pass on a haul. And when a team in the top 10 starts thinking like that, trading down becomes more than an option. It becomes the plan.
Done a great job in free agency, in my opinion, so far. Being able to kind of retool that offensive line. They brought in my old offensive line coach, George Warhop, who's one of the best of all time. And but looking at the draft, I think Monroe Freeling out of Georgia could be a really, really good pick if he's available there for the Browns at number 6. Playing left tackle because he's a great athlete. He's long. He's got all the makeup.
The event that pushed this narrative into overdrive is simple. Multiple voices around the league, from beat reporters to draft analysts, are all saying the same thing. Cleveland is open for business. You've got Ryan Wilson breaking down how the Browns could go wide receiver, offensive line, or trade back entirely depending on how the board falls. You've got insiders pointing out that there isn't a clear top-tier cluster of elite prospects in this class. And then you've got draft experts like Dane Brugler saying straight up, the Browns are expected to be looking to move back. Not might, not could, looking. This is where it gets dangerous, because when a team starts treating a top 6 pick like an asset instead of a decision, it means they're prioritizing flexibility over certainty. That sounds smart on paper, but it can go sideways fast. Because if you trade down, you're betting on 2 things: that your guy will still be there later, and that the extra picks you gain will actually turn into real players. That's a gamble, and Cleveland has not exactly been a franchise that consistently wins those gambles.
I heard that Cleveland, and this isn't a revelation, they'd like offensive line at some point in the first round, maybe 2 times in the top 3 or 4 picks. So I think the conversation for me is Cornell Tate at 6, or if there's an offensive lineman you love there that you think can come in right away and help whoever the quarterback's going to be, maybe that's consideration.
Now let's break down what they're actually debating internally. Darrell Reuter mentioned 2 names as potential blue-chip players, Jeremiah Love and Caleb Downs. The idea is simple. If either of those guys is sitting there at 6, you could just take them. No drama, no trade, just add a game-changing player. But the fact that even in that scenario, the expectation is Andrew Berry might still auction the pick tells you everything. This isn't about grabbing the best player, it's about maximizing value. And that brings us to the core debate. Do you sit at 6 and take someone like Cornell Tate, Monroe Freeling, or a top offensive lineman? Or do you move down, stack picks, and try to build depth across the roster? Ryan Wilson laid it out clearly. He likes Tate, even compared him to T. Higgins, but also pointed out that wide receivers often slide in drafts. That matters, because if you can get similar value later,
Why burn the number 6 pick on it?
It's fair, and that's part of the reason why I lean towards offensive line at 6, and then at 24, you'll probably have to trade up for Mekhi Lemon, but I think Casey Concepcion gets you 95% of the way to Mekhi Lemon, for example, or Omar Cooper Jr., for example, could be an option out of Indiana, and there's probably room for more than one wide receiver in this draft.
This is where young players usually make a mistake. They think talent alone solves problems, but front offices have to think differently. Cleveland's biggest issue isn't just one missing piece, it's multiple holes. Offensive line concerns, wide receiver depth, quarterback uncertainty. And when you have that many gaps, one elite player doesn't fix everything. That's why trading down starts to look appealing, because instead of one player, you might get 2 or 3 contributors.
Won't be a popular pick for the Cleveland Browns here, but I'd go with Reuben Bain Jr. right here at 6.
No, I love it. I love it. And he actually seemed excited about the idea when we spoke with him about going to the Cleveland Browns because we were doing a live mock draft.
But here's where things get complicated. Joe Thomas came out and publicly backed Monroe Freeling as a potential pick at 6. And when Joe Thomas talks offensive line, people listen. Not casually, seriously. This is one of the greatest to ever do it at that position. If he says a tackle has elite traits, that carries weight, real weight. And suddenly, the idea of staying at 6 and taking a left tackle doesn't feel like a reach. It feels like a calculated move. Here's the part nobody is talking about. Joe Thomas just gave the Browns a safe option. Because if you take Freeling and he works out, you can point to a Hall of Famer who endorsed the pick. That matters in a front office. It gives cover, it gives credibility, but it also creates pressure. Because now fans are going to expect that evaluation to be right. And if it's not just a missed pick, it's a missed opportunity to trade down and gain more assets. Now let's escalate this, because this is where the real tension sits. The Browns don't seem to have a must-have player. That's the key difference between this draft and previous ones. There's no Travis Hunter situation where you're locked in. There's no generational prospect forcing your hand. Instead, Cleveland has a tier of players they like. And when you have a tier instead of a target, trading down becomes the logical move, because you're not losing your guy, you're just repositioning. But the problem is, the trade market isn't guaranteed either. You need a partner, and not just any partner. You need a team desperate enough to move up. Ryan Wilson pointed out that quarterback trades usually drive the biggest returns, but this year, the quarterback class isn't creating that same urgency. So the Browns might want to trade down, but they might not get the kind of offer they're hoping for. This is where it gets dangerous, because if you wait too long or overplay your hand, you can get stuck. You pass on a player at 6 thinking you'll trade down, and suddenly no one's calling. Now you're scrambling. Now you're picking someone you didn't plan for. That's how drafts go sideways, and Cleveland fans have seen that movie before. There's also another layer here that can't be ignored. The Browns have been aggressive under Andrew Berry. They've shown they're willing to move moves, trade up, trade down, move picks around. So when insiders say they're looking to trade back, it's not speculation, it's based on behavior. This front office doesn't sit still, and that makes it even more likely that something happens at 6. At the same time, there's a very real argument against getting too cute, because one of the smartest points in your content is this: if you love a player, just take him. Don't overthink it. Don't risk losing him because you wanted an extra second-round pick. If Monroe Freeling is your guy and you think he's a franchise left tackle, you don't gamble that he'll still be there at 12. You pull the trigger. Because the worst outcome isn't reaching at 6, it's missing completely. And that's the tightrope Cleveland is walking. Be aggressive or be decisive. You can't fully do both. Trading down is aggressive in terms of asset accumulation, but it's indecisive in terms of player commitment. Staying at 6 is decisive, but you risk passing on extra value. And whichever path they choose is going to define how this draft is remembered. Here's the part nobody is talking about. This decision is bigger than just one pick. It's about how the Browns build moving forward. Are they a team trying to stack talent and grow slowly? Or are they trying to find cornerstone players and build around them? Trading down signals one philosophy, staying put signals another, and fans will read into that immediately. There's also the quarterback factor lurking in the background, because even though the Browns might not take a QB at 6, everything they do is influenced by that position. If they don't believe they have their long-term answer, then building depth across the roster becomes even more important. That supports the trade-down argument. But if they think they can develop what they have, then protecting that quarterback with a top offensive lineman becomes the priority. That supports staying at 6. This is where it gets dangerous, because Cleveland has been stuck in this middle ground for years. Not bad enough to fully reset, not good enough to truly contend, and decisions like this are what either break that cycle or continue it. Trade down and hit on multiple players, and you accelerate the rebuild. Miss on those picks, and you stay stuck. Take a player at 6 and he becomes a star, and you anchor your roster. Miss, and you wasted a premium opportunity. And now you see why analysts keep circling back to the same conclusion. The Browns are almost guaranteed to explore trading that pick. Not because they have to, but because it makes too much sense based on their situation. Multiple needs, no clear top target, a draft class without a deep elite tier. All signs point to movement. But the final decision is going to come down to one moment. One player on the board, one offer on the table. Because if the right name is sitting there at 6, everything changes. Suddenly the trade talk disappears. Suddenly the plan shifts. And that's why no one can say with certainty what will happen, because this entire situation is fluid. So now the question becomes simple, and this is what makes this debate so powerful. If you're running the Browns, do you trust your board enough to stay at 6 and take your guy? Or do you trust your ability to build enough to trade down and turn one pick into multiple pieces? Because whichever choice they make, it's not just about this draft. It's about whether Cleveland finally gets out of its own way or stays stuck making the same gamble over and over again.